Sonic Generations, a game that was meant to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Sonic franchise, while appealing to both old and new Sonic fans, being considered one of the best Sonic games of all time. But today, we are not going to discuss how good the game is. Today, I'll show you the cut content, the betas, the demos, the secrets and the things that you probably didn't know about the game. Most of the stuff covered is already documented on the Sonic Wiki, Sonic Retro, the Cutting Room Floor and Hidden Palace, so this video is for those of you who are too lazy to do the research yourselves. I also recommend checking out Cybershell's bonus videos on Sonic 2 and Sonic 3, as that's where I got the video and title idea from. As is tradition on these type of videos, I always like to start by covering the content that didn't make the final cut. As you are probably aware, Sonic Generations was also released on the 3DS, being almost a different game entirely compared to the console and PC releases, so I'll quickly cover the cut content of that version as well. There's a little 16x16 green square that goes unused, found in Emerald Coast's Act 1 foreground assets. Not much information can be gleaned from its visual appearance, but its internal name is Test. Here is a bubble that reads Coming Late 2011 that was used in the E3 2011 demo build at the end of the demo. A 1990 label is stored among the collection room assets. In the collection room, year labels are used on box arts, but because no Sonic game released in 1990, this goes unused. 4 different files can be found in the Game System folder. They contain various images of Sonic, taken at 2 angles to test the 3DS's stereoscopic 3D capabilities. Some of these angles are very slight, while others are quite extreme, providing different levels of depth. Here you can see an early pause menu with some noticeable differences from the final version. This model can be found in the system directory alongside other test files. It's a simple sphere with large markers denoting the 3 axes, X, Y and Z. And that's most of the cut content of the 3DS version covered. Now let's get into the main version of the game that was released to Windows, the PS3 and the Xbox 360. Images from the Sonic Unleashed debugger remain in the game. All these debug images were in a folder named Hedgehog. An early screenshot of Sonic Unleashed showed the debugger in action. The game's executable is scattered with the file name of the game's source code. This contains various internal names for Sonic Generations, such as Sonic X2, Sonic Unused and Sonic 2010. In the characters section of the art room, there are 14 characters with biographies. However, the data includes text for an entry for Super Sonic, who's never seen in this section and lacks any other data for it in the XML files. In Planet Wisp, Sonic can collect wisps from Sonic colors. Classic Sonic can use the pink spikes, while Modern Sonic can use the orange rocket. Normally, they are only in this level, but there are skill entries and descriptions for them in the skills file. However, they cannot be hacked into a save file, as they are missing from the game's skill list. There is an unused part of Silver's rival boss theme that doesn't play in-game. In the original soundtrack, it just plays later at around 2:28, but in the final version they are separated and this one is labeled Part 2. The original purpose of this track being separate is unknown. There is a song that plays when Modern Sonic gets an invisibility box, but there aren't any in any modern acts. It still works if you hack Modern Sonic into a classic stage, however. This did eventually get used in the 3DS version. There's a song that went unused in Sonic Adventure, used in Sonic Adventure 2 and returns to being unused in Sonic Generations. 'Cause The actual 1-up jingle in the game is stored as a short sound file instead. This song is supposed to play whenever the time break skill is used, but it doesn't. Despite it not being used, it has been included on the Blue Blur Sonic Generations original soundtrack album as Skill Time Break. There is an unused White World hub theme, which sounds like the Green Hill Zone hub theme but played with the instruments from White World's hub theme. The environment map for Planet Wisp is actually made of screenshots from the game itself. The 6 parts of the image, which are assembled together to form a cube, all show Sonic running through the air in a nondescript location in Planet Wisp. Just below his feet is a ball made of red wires, which indicates the use of a 3D rotation tool. The last 2 sides are duplicates of the first 2. Since Sonic Generations is basically just a modified Sonic Unleashed using the same engine, there is bound to be leftovers in there. The foot sweep kick move from Sonic Unleashed is still in the game, but unused. It can be re-enabled by replacing some hex code, then pressing the B button in-game. Inside one of the game's files, there is a folder labeled Install that contains images that would have been used during an install process. These are also present in the PlayStation 3 version of Sonic Unleashed. One file contains several images for debug mode / level editor things, plus the infamous Hedgehog icon. While there are new shader tables and a new optimized renderer, it looks like Sega forgot to take the old ones out. There are mods that make it so the game uses the Sonic Unleashed render, therefore using that game's lighting and effects. One file contains the mission UI from Unleashed, however, most of the textures are missing. Copying them directly from Unleashed makes it possible to view. There are a few unused animations that were supposed to be used in the Time Eater boss. In the game files there are some mission objectives that never got into the game. Those include destroying a certain amount of enemies to finish the act. Note that these mission requirements are used in the 3DS version of the game. In one of the Time Eater's game files, there exist several mirrored images of the characters' names in different languages, each printed on a color header matching the character's primary color scheme. These images even include headers for Metal Sonic and Omo Chao, even though neither of these characters appeared for the final boss battle. There is a mode that changes whether the game displays in 16:9 widescreen, set by default for all released consoles or not, left over from the cancelled Wii release of the game onto the PC port, with a lot of bugs, involving broken HUD positioning and FOV correction for stage cameras, but with clipping outside the 16:9 region. The aspect ratio is also maintained to its original widescreen ratio, regardless if widescreen is disabled. There is an unused option that can change the homing attack's button to X, but if this option is set to true, the homing attack can be performed by pressing the X button, although it will disable the jump dash for both classic and modern Sonic. Also, the player will be unable to double jump when equipped with elemental shields. And that's most of the cut content covered. Now let's analyze the demos and the betas of the game. Unfortunately, compared to the other videos, there aren't many demos or betas to cover here. I could also cover the trailers, but they don't present any notable or noticeable differences compared to the final game. However, there were 2 demos made for Sonic Generations which present some differences compared to the final product. The first was the 20-day demo and an exclusive demo for Xbox Live Gold members. The trailer for the game doesn't include many differences from the final game that are worth covering. There is one though that is quite interesting. At the end of the trailer, you can see Time Eater appearing in Green Hill. This cutscene is never to be seen in the final game, and the boss isn't fought in Green Hill, which may suggest that the boss was meant to be battled there. Now let's cover the 20-day demo. This demo was released for Sonic's 20th anniversary and was available to play for 20 days. By default, it only allows the player to go through Green Hill Act 1, but cracking it open reveals a ton more, including a fully functional Act 2. It's weirdly complicated to play this on original hardware. On the 360, you have to be disconnected from the internet and change the console's date to that 20-day range. On the PS3, you have to mod the console in order to change the system date the game reads from, since it's different from the date you can access normally. This demo allows 3D stereoscopic mode on TVs that aren't stereoscopic, and as a result it looks quite odd. The physics in this build are much more akin to Sonic Rush and Sonic 4 Episode 1. As a result, classic Sonic can stick to the side of the walls. The title screen has a half untextured Green Hill background as a reference to the storyline, as well as a counter showing how many days are left to play the demo. There are a ton more Sonic Unleashed leftovers in this demo compared to the final game, such as the Sun and Moon medals or some UI elements. Even though he is not playable through normal means, modern Sonic is present in the demo's code and plays as he does in the final. Likewise, Green Hill Act 2 is present and fully functional. Through hacking, it is possible to enable classic Sonic's version of Jump Dash, which can be unlocked in the final game if the player obtains the homing attack skill. Classic Sonic can't use the homing attack with a Jump Dash enabled, but does react as he normally would when he hits an enemy or object while using the skill. The demo contains 16-bit versions of Sonic and Eggman, which would have been used on a loading screen at some point. The Sonic one is used when you modify the demo to dev mode, and even then only the walking frames are used. However, the Eggman one does not show up. Another Sonic life counter is present in the demo. While it was used at one point, it was scrapped for one reason or another. In the game files, all the items, badniks, missions, cameos and bosses, along with the Sega Genesis controller, could be found. Now let's cover the other demo. On the 18th of October of 2011, Sega released another downloadable demo, which was at first exclusive to Xbox Live Gold members. This second demo contained Green Hill Act 2, featuring modern Sonic. There is a difference between the voice clips used in the demo and the final version. As he begins the act, Sonic would say, "Here we go!" like in Sonic Unleashed. This was scrapped in the final version. Sonic's blue aura follows him whenever he uses the jump dash, stomp or homing attack. And that's all for the demos and trailers. Now let's get into the trivia. According to a leaked correspondence, Sonic Generations was meant to be made as part of a deal between Sega of America and Sony for their consoles under the original working title Sonic Anniversary. Also, back then, the game was not planned to be released for the Xbox 360 or PC. Later sources from Madrid's Game Fest 2010 confirmed that the game was meant to be a combination of 2D and 3D gameplay, and would have been been developed for the Wii, the PSP, the PS3 and the PS2. When asked about whether or not it was planned for the 360, the employee indicated that talks were still going on. With the game's official release, it is uncertain how far the Wii and the PS2 versions got in development, though sources suggest that they were cancelled early in said development. In an effort to not exclude Nintendo fans from Sonic's anniversary, Sega wanted to make a game exclusive for the Wii and the DS, which became Sonic Colors. Before Generations was released, Nintendo announced the 3DS, which changed the plans, and the Nintendo console got a version of Sonic Generations. But going back to the PSP port, on the 25th of May of 2017, the game preservation group Obscure Gamers obtained a debug backup disc of the PSP version of the game dating back to November 2009. The disc was damaged, with recovery seemingly impossible. However, 14 megabytes of data would be saved. In July 2020, along with the announcement that the majority of the data was lost, some images of basic UI assets were revealed. These included the logo for Sonic Anniversary, PSP button prompts, a debug menu, and an image from a level, possibly Mushroom Hill. In an interview with Ryan Drummond, it was revealed that a third version of Sonic representing the Dreamcast era was planned during the early development of Sonic Generations. The role of voicing this Sonic was offered to Drummond, a former voice actor for the character, but he turned the offer down. Here is what he had to say about it. There was a glimmer of hope a while back when Generations was being cast. Sega asked me to come to LA to re-audition for the role of Sonic because they were doing the same thing to Jason and that cast that they did to us years before. So I went, and they were very pleased to have me back, and they actually said they were going to have me back and it was going to be this great reunion. Then when the actual offer came to my agent, it was a complete joke. They asked me to leave my union, which is how I make a living, do all kinds of work for no compensation, etc. It was a real slap in the face. I really don't see it ever happening. Sega is a huge corporation with zillions of dollars, and they don't see any need to change the way they do things. There's a lot more detail I can't go into because of legal reasons, but let's just say that I wish I'd been voicing Sonic all this time. I would return in a heartbeat, but if Sega ever decides to hire me again, the devil's making snow cones. According to Aaron Webber, Sega also had considered that Jaleel White should have voiced Classic Sonic. However, due to the idea of Classic Sonic having a voice being dropped early in development, and many insisted that Classic Sonic should remain mute, and White was never contacted and the idea was scrapped. The Sonic Generations level list was conducted almost entirely on fan feedback, unknowingly to the fans themselves. Between the game's development cycle, Sega, specifically the Sonic Facebook page, released a poll back in 2009, along with other unimportant ones, simply asking the reader to list their favorite levels from each Sonic game, leaving fans none the wiser. Because Sonic Colors was not announced yet at the time the poll was released, none of its stages appeared in the poll. The most mentioned levels from both fans and some internal employees became the official level list for Generations. All the rivals in this game also appear as playable characters in Sonic Rivals. Knuckles is the only rival in that game that is a friend in Generations, while all the others are still rivals in Generations. After Sonic saves Tails, he makes a reference saying that Green Hill was awfully familiar, followed by Tails saying that he does not recognize the stage at all.
Is it me, or is that place we were just in awfully familiar?
Not to me, but this place looks like something.
After clearing Green Hill Zone with modern Sonic, he will say,
No stranger than rescuing genies in magic books or saving aliens in an interstellar amusement park. I'm more concerned about finding our friends.
A reference to Sonic and the Secret Rings and Sonic Colors respectively. Time Eater is also the name of the main villain of Super Dimension Neptune vs Sega Hard Girls, another Sega game that has a time-traveling plot. Big's voice actor Kyle Herbert recorded lines of dialogue for Big's part of the game, but Big was later scrapped from the game's plot. It's currently unknown where in the game he would have been, as every stage already has a character associated with it. But Herbert's name remains in the credits, and Big's statue can be seen in the statue room. An interview with Takashi Iizuka from E3 2011 had Iizuka mention that the 3DS version would contain levels from the GBA games and would act as a celebration of Sonic's portable history, but the final game lacks any zones from the Sonic Advance trilogy and any handheld-based zones in general outside of Water Palace from Sonic Rush, and technically Tropical Resort since it's based off of the DS version of Sonic Colors as opposed to the Wii version. This game confirms that Sonic Heroes is considered part of the Dreamcast era. This is the second main 3D game to have someone, Classic Tales specifically, call Dr. Eggman the name Dr. Robotnik.
Dr. Robotnik!
Nobody called.
The first being Sonic Adventure, which was the game where Eggman got his name. In White Space, Sky Sanctuary has trees with grapes in them. Knuckles' favorite food is stated to be grapes in the Sonic 3 manual, and Sky Sanctuary is also where Knuckles is saved in Sonic Generations. After a stage is restored, a level's background noise can be heard, faint from the normal background music. This is easily heard when muting the music. In Green Hill, sounds of waterfalls and bird songs are heard. In Chemical Plant, sounds of construction are heard. In Sky Sanctuary, loud bird songs are heard. In Speed Highway, moving honking cars are heard. In City Escape, crowd stalking are heard. In Seaside Hill, sounds of a beach are heard. In Crisis City, sounds of volcanic explosions are heard. In Rooftop Run, faint crowds are heard. In Planet Wisp, a mix of bird songs and construction is heard. During the credits, after defeating the final boss, Modern Tails and Classic Tails are briefly seen discussing something at Sonic's birthday party during the game's last cutscene. What they are talking about differs between the English and Japanese localizations of the game. In the English version, they said,
Wow, where does somebody put all those gold rings? You know what? I don't know. I keep forgetting to ask.
In the Japanese version, they said,
飛行機に足をつけたって？ソニックのトルネード号になんてことしちゃったのさ。確かに足はやりすぎたかな。
The auto-tuned part of Escape from the City Act 1 is the same melody from Sonic 3's Endless Mine level. The opening cutscene for the Shadow fight in the console and PC versions of the game is nearly identical to the opening of the SA2 battle cutscene. When modern Sonic finishes off his freestyle trick, the finish pose that he strikes resembles Sonic's pose from the cover art of Sonic Adventure. Due to its returning cameo in the background of Radical Highway on the 3DS version, Knights is the only non-Sonic character to appear in Sonic Generations. Similar to the missing posters of Ray and Mighty in the City Escape level, wanted posters can be seen of Fang and Bean and Bark. The wanted status could both be a reference to them being criminals and due to the fact that fans often requested for these three characters to be put into a new game. Perfect Chaos's appearance in this game is different to its appearance in Sonic Adventure. In Sonic Adventure, it was a creature made entirely out of water, whereas in Sonic Generations it has scaly, reptile-like skin. According to an interview with Takashi Iizuka in the Prima Strategy Guide for Sonic Generations, Perfect Chaos's 2011 design is how the team had originally planned the monster. It had to be changed in Sonic Adventure due to the technical restraints of the Dreamcast. And that's all I have for this episode. Compared to the other games, this one doesn't have as much cut content or as many betas and trailers to explore, but I think it was fun to explore some hidden and obscure content. I have made videos like this one for Sonic Heroes, Sonic 06 and Sonic Unleashed, so I recommend checking them out if you want. If you have any suggestion about any Sonic game I should cover next, feel free to leave it in the comments down below.